Hey there, I'm Larissa from Beekeeping Made Simple, and this video is about me unboxing and assembling a LANGSTROTH style beehive that is a Hoover Hive from Galena Farms. Galena Farms was nice enough to contact me and give me one of their full beehive kits in exchange for putting it together on this video. So I will mention that if you do purchase a hive using the link below and use coupon code Larissa, which is L-A-R-Y-S-S-A, my name, and you'll get 5% discount, and I do also make a commission. So want to put that out there. That being said, I do not promote things or give a bunch of fluff about stuff that I do not like or lie about stuff, because, you know, I mean, I make a commission, but like, it's not thousands of dollars. I really am just excited to talk to you about equipment that I like and that I found is made well, because I've had some struggles finding beekeeping equipment. I am going to unbox it, assemble it, and give you all of my tips on how to extend the life of your beehive, as well as save money when buying beekeeping equipment. And I will explain how you put together the LANGSTROTH style beehive, the differences in equipment, and how to use this style hive. When I first got started beekeeping, I found the LANGSTROTH style hive incredibly confusing. I started out with a top bar beehive. That style made sense to me. It was one big box. Put frames inside it, put a lid on, it was on legs, made sense. But the LANGSTROTH style hive had all of these pieces to it, and the pieces were different heights and different widths, and I didn't quite know when you were using what. So I'm going to address all of these questions that you might have and other beginner beekeepers might have when it comes to a LANGSTROTH style beehive. And all of these different topics are listed below, so you can jump ahead to the topics that pertain to you. So let's get started. First, I opened the box already. I just wanted to see what was inside. I couldn't help myself. The box is really, really stupid heavy. I had trouble lifting it from the floor to the table. It is double boxed. It's two very thick cardboard boxes, so it is boxed well, and it's wooden stuff, so it's not like, you know, there's a slim chance things are going to get damaged, but a heavy box for to be delivered. Luckily, they do ship if you buy at least $50 or more of equipment, so that's really great. So what I have is, what this comes in this kit are two deep boxes that hold 10 frames. So I have the short sides, 4 of these short sides with the logo, and we have 4 of the long sides for the deep boxes. This kit comes with 1 medium box, so you have 2 of the long sides and 2 of the short sides. The hive also comes, these box also comes with deep frames. So you're going to have 10 frames for each box. So we're looking at 30 frames. All of the frames have the same top bar. This is the top bar. All of the frames have the same bottom bar, which is the skinnier end. But the deep frames have a different end bar. So the deep frames are going to have the taller end bar, and the shallow frames are going to have the shorter end bar. What's really nice is that it comes with a little set of instructions. It tells you what's inside the kit, the name of it, and how many of each of these items should be in there. It also shows you how to assemble your box and how to assemble your frames. It also has the full beehive assembled on the side, so it shows you that the frames go in the box and how that looks. And then it shows you the order of all the parts on the box. Inside your frames, you may or may not want foundation, so this kit comes with foundation. We have 20 sheets of deep foundation for the deep frames and the brood boxes, and we have 10 sheets of plastic foundation for the medium box. The black ones usually go in the brood. Now, black foundation is helpful because it should make spotting an egg easier. The egg is white, If your foundation is black, it can make spotting eggs easier, but the color does not make a difference as far as I am aware to the bees or whether the bees will take to it. What does make a difference is that these are beeswax coated. If you get uncoated foundation, you're going to want to take beeswax and rub it onto your foundation. You can make a beeswax crayon. That's the easiest way to do it. Or you can melt some beeswax and take a brush and try to coat it on. I personally don't use foundation. I do occasionally in some of my honey frames, but in the extractor video, I extracted 4 frames with absolutely no foundation in them, and they did fine. None of them broke. You just need to start off slow, not just crank it up to level 10 right away, and it does fine. This is an inner cover. So I'll show you how to use this and the pros and cons of using an inner cover later. I also have a video, the link is below in the video description, on it's called What on Earth is the Purpose to an Inner Cover, and was actually a quite popular video and some helpful comments down below by people that use these. Comes with 1 plastic queen excluder. I will talk again about queen excluders, the pros and cons, when to use them, when not to use them, because I am a big advocate of not putting them on immediately on your hive as soon as you put a super on. That can deter the bees from going up into your super and putting honey in there, but really good to have for in certain situations. Now, these queen excluders are plastic and they work just fine, and they last actually a really long time, but they can get really wonky, and then they don't do as good of a job excluding the queen. So when you're storing this until you need it, put it somewhere flat, you know, like put it on a shelf and then put everything on top of it. We have our telescoping lid, which is really nice. For the first 5 or so years, I did not have one of these. I just went with the migratory lids. I built my own boxes, and so I just put a flat piece of plywood on top a lot of the times. But these are really great for ventilation and humidity control and will last a whole lot longer. This thing is solid, man. This thing is heavy. And then we have a bee escape, which is really fun that they added this in. This is, if you bought this on its own at the website, it's $4.99. So not like a big cost if you want to throw this in when buying your beekeeping equipment. Now this goes in your inner cover, just like this, and it helps with harvesting honey. It just keeps the bees can get out of the box with this, but they can't get back in. So eventually all the bees are out of your honey super, and you have an empty honey super that you can harvest without having to do anything to get the bees off your frames. And we have a wax coated bottom board, which is also really strong and just seems like it is going to last a good long while. This is an entrance reducer, so you have 2 different hole size options, a very small one and a medium size one. And then we have the mouse guard, which also comes with these cleats. So this is great because it does 2 things. It has these small holes down at the bottom so that the bees can come and go from the hive, but it keeps rodents out. And this is important. You want to put this on well before you close your hive up for the winter, but when it's starting to get cooler out in the evenings, because mice will come in and try to make the beehive their home so they have somewhere warm for when it gets cold out, but they do this well before it is really cold out. Now you can flip it over to the other side, and now the bees can't come and go because these holes will be up against the wood of the box, and you just have these small holes for ventilation. And this is helpful when moving bees, because you want ventilation, but you don't want them to get out of the box. And finally, you're going to get a bag of hardware, which is super helpful because you don't have to figure out what kind of nails or screws you need for assembly. And now we're going to assemble it. Real fast, a little bit about these boxes. These are wax coated, which I didn't even know there were beekeeping supply sites that sold wax coated bee boxes on a small scale to hobby beekeepers. And this is great because the wax coating helps protect your box. You can paint your boxes, and that is another way to protect them. But 1, you're saving yourself a lot of time not having to use paint. 2, you're not having the stinky paint on your box, which is also going to take a whole lot longer to the smell for it to go away. It has dovetail joints, which is also really surprising. All the boxes I bought have been finger joints. So the dovetail joints look really nice and are also really sturdy and should extend the life of the hive. It is made from fir wood, which has a tighter grain flow than pine and is less likely to shrink, expand, warp, or twist. So now we're going to assemble the beehive. You don't have to assemble all of the boxes and frames before you get your bees. All you need to get started before your bees come is one deep box assembled plus 10 frames. And then you can do the other stuff later. Just keep in mind you want your deep box plus frames assembled at least a month in advance, I would say. I mean, I'm just pulling that out of thin air. I don't really know how long it takes for the scent of wood glue and whatever smells are on this to dissipate, but I like to leave it out a few weeks in the sun for the smell to just like dissipate, because bees don't like all of those smells. The bottom board and the lid are already done, so all we need to do is the boxes and the frames. All right, we're back. I put the boxes together. And God, I do not know if this is how all of their boxes are or if I got some boxes with some really tight joints. But those did not go in easy, which is good in the long run because there is just like no gaps in here. But it took quite a bit of pounding to get them in. So next you want to screw them together. Next, we're going to assemble some frames. I'm just going to put one frame together. I hate putting together frames. I have sat on the ground in my driveway for countless hours over the years just putting together frames, you know, with like 40, 50 in front of me. My husband has helped putting these together. Luckily for work, he got a nail gun, and that was a game changer. Oh my God. How nice it is to have a nail gun when assembling frames. But if you do not have a nail gun, then you're going to do it the old-fashioned way with a hammer and nails. And this is my baby hammer that my husband made fun of me for buying, but it was in the dollar section at Ace, and it's really good for hammering frames together because, you know, the wood in these frames, it's not like hammering nails in these bee boxes. So it's actually kind of nice to have a lightweight hammer. It doesn't tire you out as much as hammering with a heavier hammer. I'm going to put a medium frame together, so you want one of your top bars, which will look like this. You're going to have two different kinds of bars that are long, a top bar and a bottom bar. You want one of each. One's going to be wider and one is going to be narrower. So the wider part is the top and the narrower part is the bottom, and it's labeled pretty well in the directions as well. And you want two end bars. The top and bottom bars are the same no matter what depth of box you have. You just want two of the same end bars. So this is for the medium box, and then the taller end bars are for the deep box. Total, you're going to be assembling 30 frames. And of all the beekeeping equipment I've made screened bottoms, I've made lids, bottom boards, deep boxes, shallow boxes. One thing I've even tried to make my own beeswax foundation sheets. But one of the few things I've never tried to make is frames, because it's just, I found I don't think they do it anymore, but Man Like used to sell boxes of 100 frames on Amazon for $100, and they shipped to me for free, and so I would just buy that. It didn't seem worth it to build my own frames, except for when I had a top bar hive and I was just making that top bar and not a full frame. So you're going to start with the top bar, and the directions here show you only needing 4 nails. One on either end of the top bar and one on the bottom of each bottom bar. The way I've always done it is to put 2 on the top bar And I've done sometimes one, sometimes two on the bottom bar. It depends on how much energy I have at the end of the day. I did, when I was keeping bees for this resort, and they had someone on staff assembling it, which was a mistake because they just put these frames together with no wood glue, put one, no, I think they used like a staple gun actually. I think they used a staple gun to staple it all together, and like 4 staples, and that was it. And these frames fell apart, like they were just coming apart as if there was no staple in them the first time I was using them. It drove me insane. I just threw them all under in the beekeeping equipment area in the resort and went and got my own frames that I had built already. So don't do that. Make sure you use wood glue and use nails. So these nails are 1 1/4 inch. That's what they come with, and that's the recommended nail for this. Okay, so I will just be upfront with you. I cannot find my wood glue anywhere. I have no idea what happened to it. Possibly it just was dried up and I threw it out and forgot to buy more. So for demonstration purposes, I am using Elmer's craft glue. Do not use craft glue or Elmer's glue. You want wood glue. What you're going to do is put some on the bar and on the end. It's good to have a rag when doing this so that if you have extra glue falling to the ground, you can wipe it up and it's not sitting on your frame. I usually do this outside in my driveway so I can hammer it on the concrete. And then you want to put some glue on the bottom bar. And if you are using foundation, this is when you'd want to put it in. There's a couple different types of frames that I see sold at beekeeping supply sites. Sometimes they have this little wooden piece that you take off that you can then use to help keep the foundation in. I don't remember the different names for these different frames. But what I found is that most beekeeping supply sites sell one kind of frame, so you don't like have different options for the type of wooden frame you want. These are pretty simple. This is the simplest version that you can probably get. They just have a groove in them to put the foundation. Whether it is beeswax, you can just put a sheet of beeswax in there, or the plastic foundation sheet. So now that it's all glued together, we're going to put our nails in. Well, I have the opposite problem of putting the bee boxes together. The frames are not very tight, which is fine. It's not really a problem. The bottom of the frame, there's a groove in the center, so you want to put the nail on the side, not in the center. You can also buy assembled beekeeping products. I believe they have assembled beekeeping supplies on their website. It just costs more. Of course, I don't recommend putting frames together on your coffee table. Okay, so I have my frame together. I put in 6, 2 on the bottom, 1 on either side on the bottom, and 2 on either side on the top. A lot of beekeepers will put an extra nail down here for 2 nails on either side on the bottom. I think that's overkill because you're not prying the frame up with that. I don't think this bottom part has enough pressure being pulled on it for that to be necessary. Some beekeepers will also put another nail in here at an angle to give this part extra support, the ears. I haven't really found it necessary to use 8 or 10 nails. Every once in a while a frame comes apart and I either nail it back together or use a frame saver, which is a really great little thing that you can buy. They're pretty cheap. It's like $10 for a bag of them. You get like 5 or 10 in the bag, and it's just this metal piece that goes over the ear of the frame and connects the top bar to the side, and then you can continue to use your wooden frame for a little while longer. Actually, a while longer. All right, so once you have all your frames assembled, you're going to put them in the box. The ones that aren't as tall are going to go in the box that is not as tall, and the deeper ones are going to go in the deeper box. Now we have everything assembled, and I want to show you how to stack it all together. I'm going to give you some tips on how to extend the life of your beekeeping equipment, how to save some money when buying beekeeping equipment, and some other stuff. This is what the hive should look like when you're using all your boxes, but this is not what you're going to put your bees in. When you first get your bees, you're going to start off with just your bottom board and one box. If you buy a package of bees, you're going to put all of your 10 empty frames with the foundation in them in this box, along with all of your bees from the package plus the queen. You are going to take your inner cover, which is this guy right here with the hole in it, and you're going to put it on top. And then your package of bees should have come with a feeder, like a can with some holes poked in it, and there should be sugar syrup in it. So just give the can a shake, make sure there's some syrup still in there, and then you put the can on top so that the bees can access the holes with the syrup dripping out through the hole in your inner cover. Then what you're going to do is take on one of your other boxes, put it right on top, so that you're protecting that feeder and it doesn't get knocked over. And then you're going to put your lid on top, and that's going to be your beehive for a little while. As the bees start to eat the syrup, you check on the syrup. If it's empty, you can buy a feeder or make a feeder and put that in place of the syrup feeder. Be careful with making your own feeder. I have found that a lot of them don't work well. I've tried like a Ziploc bag with holes poked in it. I've used a can and poked holes in it, and it's really, it's easy for too much syrup to get out and to pull up inside your hive and for bees to drown in it. Just this tiniest little puddle, it's easy for bees to just get stuck in there. So I prefer buying a feeder, and Galena Farms actually has a really nice feeder that is wooden, and you can put candy in there at winter time or sugar syrup in there in the spring and summer, and it has these slatted racks that float so that bees have somewhere to land. I also really don't like the feeders that are just a big plastic frame, like they are the size and shape of a frame, but there's a hole inside for you to pour a whole bunch of syrup, because I find a lot of bees drown in those things as well. So as it starts to warm up and there's more flowers blooming and you don't need to feed your bees anymore, you're going to take that feeder off and stop giving it to the bees. What you're also going to be seeing at that time is that the bees are going to be filling in their frames with comb and filling in that comb with either food, or the queen's going to be laying in there. Once you have only 1 or 2 empty frames in this first box, you're going to need to put another box on. So you take this outer cover off, take your feeder off. Once the bees are bringing in enough food on their own and it's warming up and there's food to gather, you're going to put another deep box on top of your first deep box with frames. Now what I like to do is take some frames of brood and food from the first deep box and put them in the second, and that helps to encourage bees to move up. Just whatever you do, don't leave a big gap in your brood. You don't want more than 1 empty frame in between brood frames, and you want there to be food or at least drawn out comb on either side of your brood frames so that that brood stays warm. You don't want to just throw 1 or 2 frames of brood into a box and just have all empty frames with just foundation and no comb, because that brood can die and not be kept warm for long enough. And so when you put that second box on, you can put your inner cover back on if you like. Now this is up to you. I have a link to the video called What on Earth is the Point to an Inner Cover down below. I don't use inner covers. There's a use for them in winter time. You can put your candy up here. And then there's also this little slit which can give the bees an upper entrance, a really easy upper entrance for you, because it's important to have an upper entrance and a hole for hot air to chimney up and out of your hive when it is winter time. But in the summertime, I don't use it. Some beekeepers do like to use it because they find that the bees propolize the lid down and they have a really hard time getting their outer cover off. And having an inner cover can help. Or I've talked to a beekeeper in Texas who has some Africanized bees, and he said that the bees get really upset just at you taking the outer cover off. And so having this inner cover can help decrease the amount of how aggressive they are when you are opening the hive, when you're not just pulling off a cover and exposing the bees to so much sunlight immediately. But that is for you to decide as you get your bees and see what their temper is and how they react. And how you do taking your cover off. And no matter what's going on with your boxes, you always want a cover on the top. Now, as this box starts to fill up, not only are you going to want to do things to prevent your hive from swarming, and to make sure there's room in your brood, because no matter how many empty boxes you have on top of a beehive, it will not prevent your beehive from swarming. You still need to give space in the brood section. But now that the brood is full and you only have maybe 2 or 3 empty frames in your brood boxes, it's time to add some honey boxes. Now some people immediately will put their queen excluder on. This is a queen excluder. They'll put it on their second brood box and put a honey box on. I don't like to do this. I've seen lots of drones dead in these queen excluders. They get stuck and they die. I have had quite a few queens get past the queen excluder, so it doesn't always exclude the queen anyway. And I found that it just deters the bees from moving upwards. I also just think there's not a good point to it to put on immediately before bees have done anything in their box to the honey frames, unless you have a flow hive. So I don't use queen excluders unless I absolutely have to. So once these 2 boxes are mostly full and you only have a couple of empty frames, that's when you want to add your honey boxes. There are 2 different heights to a honey box. There's the medium and a shallow, or a honey super. There's only about an inch difference between the 2, and the medium can weigh about 10 pounds more when full. So this hive comes with a medium box. But if you are concerned about lifting heavy things, then you can get a shallow box, or what we call the honey super usually, and it's just a tiny bit shallower, shorter in height, and your box won't be as heavy. And then you're going to put the frames that go along with that box height in there. You do not want to put a medium or shallow frame in a deep box, because the bees will build comb off of it and connect it to the box below. However, one tip I have for you is that you can put a medium or shallow frame in a deep box if it is the first box of your hive. So in this box right here, you can put one of these shallow frames in. And even though it doesn't come all the way down to the bottom of your box, that's okay. Either the bees will leave it and it will give them extra space in the brood, which I found can help deter bees from swarming, or the bees will build comb off of the bottom. But since it's just a bottom board down below, they won't connect it to the bottom board. They'll just leave a gap below it between the bottom board and the bottom of the honeycomb. I've seen bees do both in the same hive, in the same box. I've actually begun to just buy shallow frames and not even bother with deep frames so that I can just buy them in bulk and use them in both of my size boxes. So that brings me on to one additional thing I want to mention. I do not run too deeps on my beehives, and that's the way they do it at the apiaries that I used to work for, and is a common way to keep bees in Hawaii. It's just one deep box and all mediums or shallows up above that. So what the bees do is they always fill that first deep box with brood, and then maybe a frame or two of honey and pollen. The second box, which is shallow, is usually like half brood, half honey, 2/3 brood, 1/3 honey. And I do not like running two deep boxes on my hive because the second box can get really heavy if it's half full of honey and half full of brood. Now I am obviously not have the most upper body strength. Even when I was paddling for a canoe club 3 days a week and doing 10 to 15-mile paddles with them, I still just struggled with the upper body strength. So I never liked, even then, running two deep boxes. A lot of people in the majority of the United States will run two deep boxes, especially in cold weather climates. If you have a good reason for why you do this, please leave it in the comments, because it is something I don't totally see the benefit of it. Because as far as I'm aware, I mean, the queen stops laying before you prep your hive for winter, so I don't really see why it matters if the second box on your hive is deep or not, but maybe it helps in some way. So please enlighten me and do it nicely. All right, so you have your boxes on the hive. Now once this first honey box, which is here a medium, but could be a medium or a shallow, is getting full, then you would add another box on. And it's rare to need more than two of these boxes, but it might happen if you are lucky enough to live in a place where there is an abundance of flowers that the bees like to gather nectar from. But usually two of those boxes for honey is enough. So if I were you, in addition to getting this, I would buy one more medium box so that you had a spare one in case you need it for honey. Now for the mouse guard, so if it's this way, then you'll see that these larger holes are covered up by the wood, and this just allows ventilation within the hive but prevents the bees from getting out, which is good for transporting bees if you're collecting a swarm, moving bees for some reason, picking up a beehive that you just purchased. And then when you are concerned about mice getting into your hive, which would be when the temperature starts to get colder at nighttime, but well before you're going to winterize your hive, you want to do it this way. And you really want mouse guards to be made of metal so that the mice cannot chew through it. If you use an entrance reducer, which I have right here, this helps with robbing. So this entrance reducer is great. It fits in there really nice and tight, and this is great for when there's a robbing season. There's not a lot of flowers blooming and the bees are struggling to find food. Bees will rob each other, your hives will rob each other, wasps will come, and so you can reduce the entrance to this way, or you can put it to the smaller entrance if things are really bad. If your hive is small and you say just split it or just purchased it, then it's also good to reduce the entrance because there's less of a space that the bees have to defend and guard when making sure that other pollinators aren't trying to come in and steal their food. If you put together your frames and decide you don't want to use foundation, but then later on change your mind, you can actually pop foundation out of a frame. It's just plastic and it's not that thick, so it does have a little bit of give to it. So if you have frames without foundation and you choose to put some foundation in, you just put it in that slit of the top bar, and then you want to put a little bit of pressure on the other end to bend it, and you can get it in, and you can get it into the bottom part, and now you have a frame with foundation. I really strongly recommend trying a frame without foundation, whether in your brood boxes or the boxes for your honey, and just seeing how it goes. If you're concerned that bees are going to be building cross comb, one, make sure your hive is perfectly level. Two, put 10 frames in a 10 frame box or 8 frames in an 8 frame box. Do not leave more of a gap than that. And if you have your other frames with drawn out comb, a foundationless frame in the center of those 2 frames, the bees will build in a straight line like every other frame. But if you're really concerned, you can take a popsicle stick and a little bit of beeswax and put that in there to give the bees a little starter line if you like. But I do not do that, and I do not have a problem with it. I like to use foundationless frames in my brood because that allows the bees to build their cell sizes whatever size they want. They can make as much drone comb as they want or no drone comb at all. There's no need to buy drone foundation, and it can help with mite control. It can also help with if a hive is making queen cells and you want to split other hives, and this hive has genetics you like. You can cut out some of those queen cells when you don't have foundation very easily with a sharp knife and put them into other hives. So there's a lot of reasons to not use foundation within your brood, and I recommend just trying it out because the hive doesn't have to be all one or all the other. You can just pop some foundation out of a frame and give it a shot and put the foundation back in later. When you want to save money with all of this beekeeping equipment, now this is actually pretty cheap. This was under $200 and shipping is free. But there are other ways that you can also save money. For one, if you purchase from the Galena Farms, then you want to use the coupon code Larissa, L-A-R-Y-S-S-A, for 5% off. But you can also just go with one size box. You can go with all medium boxes and medium size frames, and then you can use them however you need to. Maybe one bee colony it does poorly and they're always just one box. Then you can take those extra boxes from that colony and put them on the other colony that's doing really well. You can also buy in bulk, so either just yourself or find other beekeepers, talk to people in your bee club. Galena Farms also offers bulk options. So if you buy at least $50 worth of equipment, you get free shipping. But then if you buy $600 worth of equipment, you get 10% off. At $1,200 or more dollars worth of equipment, you get 15% off. So if you know other beekeepers or you contact people in your bee association and you make one big bulk order, then you can get a good deal off of your equipment. And then of course use coupon code Larissa for 5% off your order of whatever it happens to be. Now the Hoover Hives are the more expensive option. They are beeswax coated, they're made with fir wood, but they also offer another beehive style called Busy Bees and More, which is made from eastern white pine. It is responsibly sourced from Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's Amish made in the United States. It is not wax coated, but a really great beehive. And then there's also Newbie, which is a combination of fir and pine. So I hope this helps you while you are assembling your beehive and deciding what kind of equipment to get and how to save a little bit of money when buying your beekeeping equipment. I started out making a top bar hive because I was in my 20s, freelancing, making very little money, driving around a car that was over 10 years old. It had been hit by numerous cars, sometimes not even with me in it. Someone stole my turn signal while I was not there. My grandmother would, when I would drop her off at church, she would make me drop her off like down the street because she didn't want her friends seeing her get out of my car. So I wasn't looking to spend a lot of money, and I didn't want to go with the LANGSTROTH hive because it just looked expensive and it was a lot of parts. So I went with the top bar hive. A friend of mine was renovating a house he built, which was actually an old church. For some reason, he wanted to raise the roof literally and make it taller. So he took out the staircase And so I took the scrap wood from his former staircase and made a top bar hive with it. It cost $50 still to buy the wood I needed for the legs and the lid and all that stuff, and to build the top bars. But it took like, you know, like an hour and a half to build with my dad's help in his garage. And, you know, I don't recommend starting out with the top bar hive because it was just really hard to find help and parts for it when I needed it. You also just want to be careful when using wood that it is wood that wasn't pressure treated or has had exposure to chemicals. Not only for the health of your bees, because I mean in reality they are living like 8 weeks, so to probably be fine, but they're bringing in food that you potentially are going to be eating, and so you want to not expose yourself to ingesting those chemicals either. Thank you for watching. I hope this helps. Please leave in the comments if you have one of these hives and your experience with it, or if you have any other tips when putting a hive together, or how to use the equipment you see here. Don't forget to check out my free beekeeping book, The 7 Steps to Getting Started Keeping Bees in Your Backyard. You can see the link to it down below, and this has the full hive layout with all of the parts and how it goes together, as well as the other steps you should be taking before getting your bees. This is not a fluff piece just to get your email. This was what the 7 steps that I would take if I was getting started keeping bees all over again, and what I recommend to every beginner beekeeper. And if you like the t-shirt I'm wearing, Bee People Are My Kind of People, check out the link below to look at all of my beekeeping inspired t-shirts that I designed myself that are for sale on my website. Thanks for watching. Bye.